to Now You Novi. I was going to say good morning, but it's afternoon.
It is afternoon.
It's afternoon we're shooting
Late
this.
afternoon.
And for those of you listening, the voice may sound familiar. Those of you watching, I know you know who's in the hot seat today, like Novi renowned.
Wow.
You are. Like
Wow.
you are Novi. You know that, right?
Well, I've been here a long time, 82 years, so that's a long time. So
None other than Novi's. I was going to say the first lady, but you're not the first lady of Novi.
I would like to be called the first
lady
that
of
seems
Novi.
like a nice thing to say. I would like that.
Kathy Crawford, welcome.
Well, thanks. I'm happy to be here.
You know,
Love the studio.
I say it jokingly, but seriously, you are like the most renowned name and person in Novi. You know that, right?
Wow, thanks. I don't know about the renowned part, but yeah, at least I'm still alive to tell the story, right?
So you are alive to tell a story, and you were born in Novi, which lends to the credibility of everything you say about Novi.
Absolutely, everything true.
It's
all true.
All
It's all
true. You worked for the city.
Yes.
Went on to be city council member, Oakland County Commissioner,
Yep.
state rep. Like you've done it all. And now you're back in, I'm going to say, retirement.
Yes.
On the Historical Commission.
And the library board.
And the Library Board.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So no rest for the wicked.
No.
I say that with love in my heart.
I
know that.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I am
So-
a little wicked, though.
So your expertise is through the roof.
Who's going to challenge what I say? Nobody's as old as I am.
Other
has
than
lived
you.
here that long.
You? Maybe you. And he knows better, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're going to talk about Novi.
Okay.
We celebrated Novi Day last week, and people say, Novi Day, what's Novi Day? November, Nov1. If you look at it on paper, could be Novi Day. So we have claimed that to be Novi Day. And it got me thinking about all the great stories, folklore, if you would, about how Novi got its name. And NOV1 is one of those, right?
Yes,
It is. Some might say that Novi was incorporated or became a village at the time. Was it a village or a town?
Well, we were a village. We
It
were
was a
a
village.
township, and then we were a village. Then we became a city.
So, but it was first named then as a village or town.
Before that. When it was
Okay.
a township,
Okay.
it was called Novi Township.
Novi Township.
Yeah.
That it could have been incorporated or adopted on November 1, and someone looked down and said,
Could have been.
Novi.
You know, which reminds me, a former mayor, Matthew Quinn, was running for mayor, and I was working on his campaign for mayor, and we ordered signs, and it said Matt Quinn. The signs were supposed to say Matt Quinn, Mayor of Novi.
Okay.
And the signs came back, Matt Quinn, Mayor, November 1st.
See?
I know.
So maybe
I know.
they knew something,
I
right?
know. Yes. I mean, we had to send all the signs back. It was crazy. I just saw Matt recently, reminded him about that. Remember all those signs we ordered and it came back November 1st, not Novi? Yeah.
So somebody else thought that too.
I know.
So let's talk about how Novi got its name.
Okay.
Because I'm approached a lot everywhere we
Me
go.
too. Yeah.
And I was going to say, if I'm approached a lot, you're approached way more with people wanting to know or thinking they know how
Exactly.
Novi got its name. The most popular is the train stop or stagecoach stop, right?
Sixth stop. Yeah. That a lot of people, in fact, whenever I would go anywhere out of state or whatever, if I wore any kind of Novi merch, you know, if I was wearing a jacket or anything that said Novi on it, there would invariably be 2 or 3 people that would come to me and they'd say, Novi, I know how Novi got its name. And I would ask to listen to the same story again about, it was the 6th stagecoach stop, you know. But in growing up, I never really thought about how Novi got its name. We just sort of accepted it, all the Novi kids, and we really thought Novi was like a small little area Everybody thought we were all farmers that lived in Novi. And so we actually knew that one of the reasons why they named us Novi is they needed a short name because most of the people back in the 1800s were illiterate and they couldn't write their name when they went to pick up their chickens, or whatever they were going to get.
Well, look at us in Novi now. Didn't we prove them wrong?
I am so
Number
happy
one
about
school
that.
district in the state.
We didn't have a school. We had an old elementary school on Novi Road. So Novi kids had to go to Northville or Farmington or Wixom to school. We didn't have a school, and people would say to me, well, where is Novi anyway? There would be people in Farmington that did not know where Novi was. We were just in no place, really. And a lot of people thought we were very backward. I worked at the Detroit News for a while, and they said, can you bring me a dozen ears of corn when you come to work tomorrow? No. I don't like it. I didn't like it that people thought we were all farmers, although there was nothing wrong with that. My dad was a farmer.
Were there any stagecoach stops at that time or train stops that would lend credence to the number 6 stop?
No.
Okay.
No. But it was such a great story that when we were growing up as kids, we heard that story that we were the 6th stop. And I never questioned it until I met this older gentleman. He was probably in his late 80s. Now I don't think that's so old, but he was in his late 80s, and his name was Steve Hicks, and he lived on 11 Mile, the old 11 Mile. And he worked at a toll booth. And he said to me, Novi was never number 6.
No?
No, that's what he told. He's worked at a toll booth. And I thought, how can this be possible? I've been hearing this my whole life, that we were the 6th stop. No, not true. The other story that is always told is that it was the train. It was the 6th stop on the train, like from Detroit to Chicago or something or other. No. It was named Novi long before the train even came to town.
When did Novi get its name?
Novi got its name in 1830.
1830.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not nearly as interesting as all the other stories.
I know. Let's talk about some of those stories.
Yeah. So I told you about the Novi Inn. Actually was right at the Four Corners. There was a Four Corners, which was Novi Road and Grand River. That was called the Four Corners. And anyway, people that came there would see the Novi Inn, and they would see the Novi Methodist Church and the Novi Baptist Church. That was the hub of Novi.
Okay.
And at the Novi Inn, everybody knew there were people that lived upstairs at the Novi Inn. And Novi Inn was where all the locals would go for socializing or whatever. Everybody, even the milkman would go there every day after work on his way in the milk truck. So we knew everybody went there. And there were waitresses that worked in there. It was owned by Ben Tinkham, the Novi Inn. And it was bar. It was like an old-fashioned bar. But people did live upstairs. And anyway, one of the stories of how Novi got its name, and I'm kind of partial to it myself, is that there was a barmaid that waited on everybody, and she was really unattractive. She was definitely ugly, and no one really wanted to talk to her very much at all. And she was always trying to get some of the men in the bar to go upstairs with her where she lived, and they would go, Novi. Her name was Vi. Novi. And so because there were no windows in the, there was no glass in the windows, a lot of people passing by heard this and figured, well, maybe we're in Novi. Maybe that's the name of this place, Novi. Or maybe on the bar, they never served wine because it was just a beer town, right? So maybe the sign said no vino on the sign, and people thought it was the name of the town, Novi. The O dropped off or something. No vino. So I don't know. There's like all different kind of stories that are a lot more fun than the real story, which was at one of the first meetings. You can't even imagine what it was like in the 1800s in Novi, when we don't even have a downtown, so to speak, not like Farmington or Northville. We don't have a downtown now. But in 1830, if you could just picture what Novi might have looked like, but we did have township officials, people that volunteered to serve the township back then, and they had a meeting, And it was brought to their attention in the 1830s that the farmers were having trouble writing four corners, when they're going to have, because your chickens would come by rail. Maybe you'd have to go to Farmington or something to pick them up. So you had to write out your whole name, and most of the farmers were illiterate. So the meeting was discussed that we don't want to be called West Farmington anymore. That's where I lived was a Farmington address, and that was Grand River and Meadowbrook. Was still Farmington. So no, they didn't want to be called Farmington. We didn't really want to be called Northville. We need our own name, and it's got to be short so that the farmers that live here can write it. And we had people that came from other countries too. So some of the farmers or some of the people that in the orchard, the first FUERST, the first family that donated a lot of their land to the school district, they didn't speak English very well. So we had to have something short and so that people could write it. So it was suggested by the doctor's wife, NOVI, because there were a lot of NOVIs in Europe, and there still are. You can travel around through Slavic countries and you'll see NOVI. And a lot of you have probably received a phone call from somebody saying that, do you live in Novi? They always say Novi instead of Novi, not long I. So there were a number of countries named that, and it translates into new. It means new. And so that's what they picked NOVI because it was short. There was a guy from Ann Arbor at the meeting, and he said, that's a terrible name, NOVI. That's horrible. Why would you name any place that? But they voted, and it became NOVI, and that's the real story. 1830.
I like that story because I think you're correct. I think that's as close to knowing what happened because it means new in Yugoslavian.
Yeah.
I wonder was the first family, were they Yugoslavian? Or I wonder if there are any farmers that came.
Probably there were people that came from other countries, but you've got to remember back in the 1900s, and of course certainly the 1800s, we didn't really understand nor really associate people that were different than us. If there was anybody that came into town, everybody knew there was a stranger in town. We were all white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. That's the way we were. If anybody was a Catholic, I didn't even meet a Catholic till I was 10 years old. I thought they were all dark complected because the one I met was Italian, and I met him in Wall Lake because there was nobody here different than us. So if anybody came from another country, they very quickly stayed to themselves. They didn't identify themselves. If they were of a different religion, if they weren't Protestant, they did not identify themselves for fear of, bullying or retribution or whatever, because we were suspicious. We were suspicious of people from Farmington, We were suspicious of people from Northville, although I went to school there. We just didn't really, we didn't really know if we had, somebody from Europe. That would have been so unusual to know somebody from Yugoslavia.
Right. Okay.
So the doctor's wife that recommended it, they had come here from Schenectady. Okay. Like a lot of people that came to this area, they were given land grants, a lot of them because if you were in the war, especially the American Revolution or the War of 1812, you were given land grants, mostly swamp land. You go settle that land, that's your payment for being in the service. So a lot of them came here, and the doctor and his wife came here as soon as the Erie Canal opened up. And then we had more of an influx of people coming.
So back to the name. Nobody really knows. We're speculating.
We don't know why the wife recommended it. If she had traveled to Europe, hard to know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Would you come back and share some history? I think it's super interesting. I think you and I chatted off the podcast a little bit. For whatever reason, people are just interested in our history. And I think it's super cool. I mean, as a city, we're young, right? 1969, but you're saying Novi got its name almost 100 years ago now.
Yeah.
And how Novi's transformed. Who would have ever imagined in 1830 where Novi, or 1930, I'm sorry, where Novi would be You said 1830.
1830.
So 200.
1830, yes.
200 years. I've got it. Hello,
That's when
I've
they
got
had the meeting. Yeah.
So almost 200 years ago, Novi
Yeah.
got its name. Who would have ever imagined the diversity,
Yeah.
the desirability?
We
that
probably had
Novi-
diversity, but we didn't
you
know.
didn't know.
They never.
But the
really told us.
desirability
Yeah.
of Novi to such an amazingly diverse, highly educated, affluent community, like where Novi would be 200 years in the future, right?
Yeah, and I think now that people are more interested in genealogy and knowing more about their own past, they also want a connection to where they live, especially if they're living in a community for a long period of time and they have a family here. They want to know about it. They're curious about it. And I think there's also a lot of feeling that if you don't have a downtown like a Farmington or Northville, you probably haven't got a history, right? But really, we have an old history, and part of the reason for that is because of Grand River. Grand River was an Indian trail, and from Detroit to Grand Rapids, and that was one of the Michigan's first plank roads. So people could travel through our area easily on the plank roads. Yeah.
Oh, I want to have you back. Come back and
Okay.
talk to me a little bit more about the history of
Well, you better
Novi
hurry
and
up.
what-
I'm 83 now. You got to hurry. I
You
can't
look
wait
great.
a year or two.
You look great. You're still so active, and I really, really appreciate you taking the time to come
Well,
out.
thanks
and-
for having me. I think it's interesting, and I think people want to know about their town. They
I
want
mean,
to know.
if there was ever a cheerleader for Novi, like you exemplify it big time.
Well, it's because I grew up here, and everybody thought we were so backward. And I said, if ever I think Farmington will someday be a suburb of Novi, and so will Northville. Will be a suburb. Lo and behold, I'm seeing that happen. I like
Crazy.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, you've
Thanks.
seen a lot of change.
Yeah, I love it.
Thanks for sitting with me. And you're going to close the show. You're going to say, now you Novi with me, right?
Yes.
And there you have it.
Now
Now you
know
Novi. Take care.